right, guys, welcome to the Nerdy South. Us three buds here. We're ready to get into this pie and start talking about the new show, Loki. We want to dive into all things nerdy. That's what we're about here on Nerdy South. We're going to introduce ourselves a little bit. I am Grayson. I run a recording studio, and I've known these two guys pretty much my whole life. Joey, tell them about yourself.
Yes, I am Joey, and Jeremy and I are real brothers, and we've known Grayson, 20, 30 years, something like that?
Long time.
Not 30 years. I'm
long
like 33, so. But we've known each other for a long time. I own a production company, and I also do a podcast with Jeremy called The Brothers Grimm. So we're kind of getting our foray into video podcasting. So this is kind of fun.
Absolutely. And I'm Jeremy. Yes, Joey and I are real brothers. I'm the older one, so take that for what it's worth. And I am a web developer and a creative by trade. Work with a slew of clients, and we love all things nerdy. So welcome to our YouTube channel, and we hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, so what we're going to be doing, here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to break down Loki episode by episode. Every time there's a new episode, we will release a new video talking about the episode, reviewing the episode, discussing it, and then talking about what we think is ahead. And maybe every now and then we might do a little tease of some other nerdvana type things, other things like Star Wars or other properties like Indiana Jones, stuff like that. There's a lot of fun stuff out there that we love to talk about, and this is an opportunity for us to just really geek out and go all the way through. But we're going to start off with the entire first season of Loki. Well, I guess series or I don't really know if they're going to do another season after this, but episode 1 just came out, so here we are. We're going to talk about it.
Absolutely.
So I think we talked about maybe doing the how we're actually going to run this. Is we're going to talk about how our basic reactions. Then we're going to review the episode a little bit, and then we're going to talk about what's next. So, what was y'all's initial reaction to the episode? I just finished it. When did you guys finish it?
So I finished it earlier this morning. Actually, that's a lie. I watched it last night, but when you guys asked me if I watched it, I didn't want to spoil the cake.
You lied.
I know.
I watched it last night too.
I didn't want to ruin anything. I know. I was thrilled with it because it's on Wednesdays now instead of Fridays, which is exciting. Even though it's still a week apart, it still is a nice midweek break. And I was thrilled because I thought the previous 2 Marvel series were excellent. In their own right, and I was excited for Loki because he's a character that he's a villain, ultimately, and for them to do a show centric around that, I was really excited to see kind of the direction they took with it. So I was pumped when it came on.
Is he a villain though? Because I almost feel like he was an anti-hero that actually redeemed himself to being a hero, right?
I mean, only at the very beginning of Infinity War.
Yeah. Well, no, at the beginning of Endgame, right? Didn't he?
No, he got killed in the beginning of Infinity War.
Right.
Spoiler alert. I'm sorry. Hold on. If you're watching this podcast or this YouTube channel, let's hope that you're current with all the Marvel stuff because we're going to delve backwards and forwards. So
this will be
spoiler alert.
Riddled with spoilers. Just the whole show. Our whole show is riddled with spoilers. Yeah. I would say, even in the new episode or this episode 1, they talk about he even sees himself as a villain, and Agent Mobius said that's not how he sees it. And you're absolutely right, Jeremy. At the beginning of Infinity War, he does redeem himself, but there's a little bit of that in the last Thor movie as well, where him and his brother are finally kind of seeing eye to eye. They're finally working together, and then at the end of that movie, right, of course, as we see the ship show up, which we then later know is Thanos' ship. He says, "Are you leaving, brother?" And he says, "I may stick around a while." So there is kind of like this positive light finally for Loki, and then moments later in the timeline, he's killed, which is terrible.
My favorite line about Loki in Infinity War is Thanos is there. He wants the time stone, and Thor says it was destroyed on Asgard, and then Loki kind of puts up his hand and reveals the Tesseract, and Thor goes, "You really are the worst, brother." That's just my favorite. You really are the worst.
I think my favorite Thor Loki interaction is in Ragnarok when Thor's like, "Let's get help." He's like, I hate that game. I don't want to do that. And Thor just uses him to throw down enemies. It's just funny.
I hope
It's
that
great.
at some point in the Loki show, we get to see the other times they've tried the get help maneuver because that's so good.
That would be so funny. I
I
hope
like
Thor shows up in this. I mean, that would be really interesting.
for sure. Like I think that's like what we saw in episode one already. Just my initial reaction was it was really good to see a lot of familiar faces. It was so cool to see old scenes replayed from a new angle, like getting to see Loki experience his mother's death. Because we saw, Loki in his prison cell on Asgard completely destroy the room because he just heard about his mother being killed. But now he understands it from such a deeper angle, on this side of the timeline. So it's very gratifying to see as like a just super nerd with all of this.
Yeah,
Well, go ahead, Joe.
yeah, my reaction was that I really appreciated how Marvel this felt, I guess. Even though it was really unique and had a really interesting spin on the story, like WandaVision was really out there and had a really strange way to tell their story. Falcon Winter Soldier was really great. Both of those shows were really great. It had more of the Captain America feel to it, but this felt very Avengers and Marvel MCU as a whole. And I think that's just the cosmic side of it that as the rest of the movies started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, the world, the MCU itself got really big, and Loki is kind of tying that back together to how large it is, right? Falcon Winter Soldier was such a small story in the world, and WandaVision was such a small story in the world, and Loki just already feels really big. And
Yeah,
I feel like they have a lot of ground to cover.
yeah,
Well, and the thing that I love about Loki and like a WandaVision is that Marvel sets itself apart from other, whether it's superhero franchises or other movies, where they combine action and comedy really well, and they always keep the movie not so deep. And like, Captain America and the Winter Soldier probably is one of the darker for. It's not really a dark, but it's one of the more serious toned movies. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier definitely felt that way. There wasn't a whole lot of comedy. There was some, repertoire, between Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Loki just feels lighter. It kind of it's bringing on that Thor Ragnarok ish feel, where it's a really nice blend of storytelling and comedy, and it not getting lost either direction.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Loki's a fun character as it is. So, his wit and his sarcasm is already going to add to the fun. But Owen Wilson's Mobius just adds just another comedic layer that I like their dynamic a lot. It's very fun.
Well, the thing that go ahead, bro.
I was just gonna say when I saw him in the trailer, I was like, I don't know how well that's gonna work. But immediately, episode one, I'm in. Lightning McQueen taking Loki around. It's great. It's great.
I love it. I get caught looking at his nose more often than not because it's just that misshapen bridge.
I swear, the older he's gotten, the more pronounced it is, man. Like, yeah, like it's just wild.
But going back to when you were talking about Loki experiencing his mother's death, it's weird to think that this Loki that we're seeing hasn't experienced any of that.
Yeah,
and
right.
So he's in his mind, his life hasn't gone through the Dark World, hasn't gone through Infinity War, Ragnarok, or any of that. And so to watch him scrub through and to see how he dies has got to be just really, I can't even think of the word. It's kind of out of body. It's
right.
just, it's weird.
I wrote down when that scene was happening. I just wrote Tom Hiddleston is a legend, just because he is emoting everything I needed from those scenes. Like I was like, you're experiencing it like, gosh, this happened. And he's experiencing it like he's never seen it before. And it's just so much emotion on that man's face. It's so good.
This is such a unique show because you get to actually watch a character redeem himself for the second time. So like we talked about it earlier, that he through his arc, he goes from being a villain to, having a good repertoire with the rest of the characters, with Thor and Ragnarok and Infinity War. And we then came back to him as a villain, and we get to see this version of him change. And already in episode one, you could already see the regret for what he started doing, or what he felt like he had to do, which you just start learning so much more about him as a person or as a character that you don't really think about why did he do the things he did, besides just like he didn't have the love from his dad that he thought he deserved. But it's deeper than that. It's kind of like it was the illusion, as he says. He had to keep the illusion up because he is the god of mischief. And so he just ties around to his character, and it's just such an interesting way to tell his story that I'm excited to see what else are we going to learn about him moving forward.
So I want to ask you guys a question. What in the show surprised you? Like what, either caught you off guard or didn't line up with how you thought that it was going to go? Was there anything specifically? I know I have two in my mind specifically that I was like, I don't understand why, but I'm anxious to find out why.
I specifically so we were getting on the Zoom, and of course I'm still watching it. So I literally, as I saw Joey hop in, I paused it and was like, dude, I did not expect us to be in the multiverse, discussing multiverse this in depth, this quickly.
Yeah.
And they gave us this very Jurassic Parkian moment where we have in Jurassic Park you have Mr. DNA. Well, in this one you had the little time cube kind of, or a circle, keeping us in line and telling us all about the timeline. They refer to it as how do they refer to it? The sacred timeline. Yes. Yeah. So that was very unexpected for me. I was like, we in here, because I definitely thought it was going to be Doctor Strange until because they titled the movie Multiverse of Madness. So I kind of assumed we wouldn't get a lot until we were getting closer, but we are deep in.
Yeah, this is the first time they have straight up said there was a multiverse, and the timekeepers have created a sacred timeline, and we are the ones that keep it intact. That was pretty surprising. Multiverse coming out so strong with the history of the multiverse was pretty interesting. Miss Minutes, that was the character name. Miss Minutes.
Yes. And we're kind of in our review portion of the show.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to hear. So Jeremy, what are the two things that you felt were very unexpected?
So I actually have three. I was thinking about as you were talking about that. So one, when they talked about how when he was like, "Why didn't you stop the Avengers? Because they were causing variants," and Agent Morbius said, "Well, they meant to." Or I can't remember if it's her or him or the judge that he was standing in front of, but they talked about how the Avengers were supposed to cause those variants to keep the sacred timeline together. So that was one. Number two, we just spent the last 23 movies, learning about these Infinity Stones, these all-powerful stones that have the ability to change the fabric of the universe. And then all of a sudden you get to the TVA and they don't function. And he's like, "Oh, we got a bunch of Infinity Stones." And yeah, we use them as paperweights. The Tesseract doesn't work. So that was number two, surprising. And then number three was I lost it.
So I guess to the point about the Infinity Stones, I love Loki's reaction, and it's really unique because the music for the Infinity Stones and Tesseract actually starts to fade as his face drops when he looks in that drawer, and it's so interesting. Also, I love what he says to Mobius. What Loki says to Mobius, he says, "So you're the most powerful thing, huh?" Because I thought the Infinity Stones were the most powerful things in the universe, and he just goes, "Yeah."
Basically,
yeah, we are. We're the most powerful thing in the MCU.
One thing that I definitely caught me just as I was watching the episode and soaking it up. We got a lot of new terms that we were kind of learning in this in the show already, and they're called variants. There's TVA, which is the time variant authority. There's the temporal aura they talk about on every object and every person, or all these variants that are coming through. There's just so much going on that we're having to learn, but it didn't feel overwhelming. I definitely enjoyed the episode, and it definitely got me excited to watch more. And like you said, Joey, it feels like how big this world is, but it definitely starts to tie a lot of things together, which feels very affirming for, like you said, Jeremy, watching 23 movies. Here we are all right, well, now we're hearing the temporal aura. Okay, well, now that makes me think Doctor Strange and Wanda. So these are all really cool things coming together. What did you guys think of when they talked about when Loki referenced, he said, "So I'm just supposed to listen to these three lizards?" Like, what did y'all think of that?
So I'm anxious to see and hear more about the timekeepers. Like, I want to know. Like, obviously, we saw them in the Miss Minutes presentation, and it's an animated presentation, but I want to hear and see more of them. I want to find out, like, in the cosmic order, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe order, like, where do they fall? Because we have the new Eternals movie coming out, and where do they fall in the hierarchy of powerful beings? And
Okay,
so I'm curious.
Hot take first episode. Are the timekeepers real? I'm saying no. I'm saying they're a farce. It's a fake society that doesn't exist. And the timekeepers is actually like, we're going to find out it's like one person who's actually holding all this together with like a fake. They've created like a fake timekeepers. That's what I'm going with.
Well, I'll go ahead and say I am, like, probably of the three of us, the least knowledgeable about the actual comic book history and background. I basically experienced the things as they happen. So I didn't know why he referred to them as lizards, because they didn't really look like lizards. So that was weird to me. If I play off of your theory there, Grayson, I would say lizards. If Loki refers to them as lizards, there's always that thing of, like, politicians and being lizards. So, and that's kind of a piece of lore, fake legend or something. So it could be a thing where, like, maybe Loki doesn't believe they're real people, and so he refers to them that way. But I don't know. I couldn't even begin. I kind of assumed that the timekeepers are now the most powerful beings, because the Celestials, created the Eternals, and Thanos was a deviant from the Eternals, and he wanted the stones. So clearly the Eternals and the Celestials kind of are in the same power struggle with the stones, but the TVA is above that. They're above that from a power standpoint. They are monitoring Nexus level events, right? Which that was one of the surprising things that I saw. Was we learned from WandaVision that there are Nexus beings, and we learned that now we know that there are Nexus level events, which create the variant timelines. And it makes me wonder, did Wanda create a Nexus level event that also spurred another timeline that we are going to see kind of play into, leading into Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange? And because being a Nexus being, I didn't realize that, maybe her coming to full power at the end of WandaVision created another event that the TVA has to go take care of.
Right.
Yeah, I hope that they reference WandaVision in Loki. Mm-hmm. They may not. Obviously, I don't think Elizabeth Olsen is going to be in Loki, but I'm hoping that they reference that, and I think it's really going to serve as a nice bridge to, Multiverse of Madness, especially as we watch Loki continue to explore, killing or whatever, what they call it. What do they call it when they basically killed somebody with one of their wands, with one of those things?
When
what they call
retcon.
It's like, it's kind of, retcon, or they had a specific word for it.
They did use a specific word when he hit it with it.
I wanted, it's like snubbing or like derezzing or something like that. Like, I'd have to go back and look at it.
Derez, yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to be anxious to see how the episodes play out and how they continue to expand the universe into the multiverse, and they explore that, and how that ties in to WandaVision, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
And I remember the third thing that surprised me was the level of technology used in the TVA was very 80s. Yes. And everybody in it seemed like they just worked at the DMV. It was like walk through the detector, sign this stuff. It's just that it's like government employees. They hated it, but so that part surprised me. But it was a nice innovation of new technology and old technology kind of combined. Because he was watching his life on a reel-to-reel, basically.
Right. The reel ended, and it's like
it definitely had. But then it definitely had a very mid-century 70s, late 70s, early 80s vibe. with a lot of the decor and how orange and brown the tones were in the TVA and how not nice to look at it was. But I thought I really am enjoying the production design of it. It looks really good.
So there was one scene I went back and I watched 3 times because I wanted to see if what I saw was what I saw, and it was right after Loki stole the Tesseract back, and he had the little fob that allowed him to move through space that was on his neck, and he ends up in a hallway, and this doorway opens up, and 2 people walk through it, and if you watch it closely back, one of the people looks a lot like Peggy Carter. A lot like her. Same kind of hair.
The background lady in the blue dress.
Yes. Looks a lot like Peggy Carter.
Hey,
and so I'm wondering if she, because Cap goes back and, is with her, if she causes a Nexus level event and is brought in and arrested by the TVA and,
she didn't do anything.
You never know. I'm saying I'm wondering if they're going to explore that.
Cause the event.
Listen, there's some people that think that Old Man Cap is a Skrull anyways. So
and I was gonna say, when we got to the TVA right at the beginning, you do see a Skrull off to the side.
Yeah, you do.
Kind of booked in as well. So, and the one other thought that I had about the show that I wrote down as we're finishing our kind of review here, this is basically a buddy cop show. Like, it's turning into a buddy cop show between Agent Mobius and Loki. And I was like, I like this. Like, I hope they lean into that more. It's going to be fun. I mean, their on-screen chemistry is great already. Like, one episode in, I was like, this is cool. So what do you guys feel like is next?
Well, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, before we get into what's next, I did have a question that I wanted to pose to y'all. What do you think? Like, there's obviously a big storyline, which is Loki and fixing his Nexus event when he stole the Tesseract. But now there's also what we have discovered as the main plot line of this series, which is the TVA. There's a rogue variant, and it's Loki. Right at the very end, we find out that Loki was the rogue variant that was killing the agents and stealing their restart devices, or
their timeline reset device. Yeah,
the reset device. So this Loki variant is killing TVA agents and stealing the timeline device, the timeline reset. So what's going on here? What are we?
I gotta say, I don't think it's Loki. I know they say it's Loki, but if they say that, then why go through all the trouble to have this person be cloaked and all that stuff? If it really is Loki, just show it. I think it's somebody impersonating to be Loki. I think we're gonna find out it's somebody we already know. I think that's got to be the big reveal, is that the cloak comes down and it's Wanda Maximoff, or something like, whoa, it's the Scarlet Witch from a different timeline who has full powers and she is wrecking the universe, kind of thing. Or it was definitely a slimmer framed person. It wasn't going to be Thanos or somebody, but I do not think it's Loki as much as I think that's a complete misdirect. Hot take.
Yeah. My thing is if it is Loki, then like, I don't know. It seems weird that you would enlist Loki to battle Loki when clearly this Loki has no idea how this supposed variant Loki is operating. I don't know.
Why wouldn't I agree with Loki to fight himself? He knows Loki best.
Maybe, but he's not experienced everything that this other one has.
The confusing thing is I agree with you, Grayson. It's definitely looks like a female that dropped the lantern and stuff. So, I mean, she lit them folks on fire.
Yeah, all that is definitely, that was planned out. It's very well planned out for sure. And I just don't see them pulling the Zelda evil Link versus Dark Link situation happening between good and evil Loki. I think there's something bigger coming on. I think it's going to catch us by surprise, and I think I'm going to like it. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait. The first episode is 50 minutes, 52, and that was a lot longer than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be, 30-minute episodes, kind of like WandaVision was. Now, I loved the longer episode, don't get me wrong, but I didn't like how Falcon and Winter Soldier was shortened season. So if they could do longer episodes and a long season, I'd be down for it.
If I have to pick, and you guys tell me what you think, if you have to pick like out of between, Falcon, Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki, the first episode, who's winning between the first episode between the three series?
Ooh, I would go with Loki so far.
To me, so far it's Loki. I agree.
Yeah.
WandaVision's first. If it was anything other than Marvel, and I knew that it wasn't connecting to the MCU, I would have stopped watching it.
100%.
I would agree.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah. Falcon Winter Soldier, it was a good episode, but it took me, like, I love the Winter Soldier. I love Bucky Barnes. I'm not I was about Falcon, like he's a cool character and all, but I wasn't sure how like them leading a show would go. I ended up loving it, but the first episode I was like, all right, we'll give it a few episodes to make me really enjoy these characters. But I already loved Loki. Like I liked his character, and I really was already drawn from the trailers into what are you going to do? There's a lot of mystery here of like what you're going to do with this series. And I think, like I said at the very beginning, because we really established the multiverse and the cosmic realm for Marvel, in the last, phase of movies leading up to Endgame, I'm really excited to see how much bigger we're going to go with it. And this is fun. And the introduction to multiverse right off the bat was like, yes, this is what we wanted WandaVision to do for us at the end. Yeah. And I knew that Falcon Winter Soldier wasn't going to do that because that's just not their storyline yet.
Yeah, too tough.
But man, Loki came out strong with multiverse stuff.
Very excited for. I wrote this down too. I was like, this is something that we knew we wanted, but we always knew was an impossibility. We knew we were never really going to get a Loki movie, and this fulfills that want, that need, and it's great. I'm loving that we're going to get. How many episodes are we getting? Do you guys know?
I think it's the same number that WandaVision was originally supposed to be, 10. Okay. Obviously, the pandemic, chopped them down to 9. And actually, it was funny because in episode 10, Doctor Strange was supposed to come into WandaVision, and the whole last episode had to get scrapped. And so there would have been an even better tie-in that may have even tied into Loki. But yeah, I think it's 10 episodes.
I'm very excited to see what they do. What do you guys think is next? What's your pitch? Episode 2, what's coming?
I can't even begin to wonder. I think what's coming next is obviously we're going to get. I think Loki's going to escape. I think he's going to figure out a way to get out of the TVA. But they kind of left it very much on okay, so we've established this world. We've established these characters. Obviously, there's some tension between Mobius and some of the TVA agents that are handling the resetting of the timelines. So there's some internal struggles at the TVA there. And then Loki is the god of mischief. He probably wants to get back to what he was doing, but now he also is learning that there's a bigger, more powerful world out there. So what's he going to do with that? That's what I'm really curious about.
See, I don't think Loki's going to try to escape. I think he's going to revel in the fact that they want him to battle himself, because somebody like Loki, whose ego reigns supreme, like Loki thinks himself as a king and wants to rule, all 9 realms. And, who greater of an adversary than myself? And so I think he's going to jump at the opportunity to travel through time and course correct. I thought that the variant that was causing all the problems I thought that they were going to like low key introduce Kang into the MCU. I know he's supposed to come in Quantumania, but I thought they were going to kind of just softball him into it and then really explore him. And so when they said it's Loki, I'm like, oh, I'm a little disappointed, but
well, they think it's Loki. They don't know. It's hooded. This figure is hooded, so we don't quite know who it's going to be. The other thing I will say from a what's next standpoint is I'm sure, y'all know me very well. You probably will learn if you go listen to our podcast, but I love lore. I love unsolved mysteries. Jeremy and I both, Grace and I, he's into that stuff too. And the fact that they used Loki as the explanation for the disappearance of DB Cooper was one of my favorite parts already in the first episode. And I'm really looking forward to what other pieces of lore or legend are they going to tie to Loki? And what was even funnier was that he did that whole heist because he lost a bet with Thor and Heimdall.
Give it
That
a
was
little
great.
more, reason behind his madness, which is kind
Yeah.
of fun. I mean, I think like I assume we're gonna get like a Bermuda Triangle,
Oh
Loki,
yeah.
something there at some point. I feel like that's like a good obvious one that'll be some low hanging fruit. That'll be a good one.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm also curious to see how many. I mean, I'm going to ask y'all, how many more Lokis do you think we'll see?
I don't know. I mean, they're going to if this variant is causing branches in the timeline, I think you're going to end up seeing multiple Lokis because, each character exists in each branch of the timeline.
Yeah.
So, I think in the same way you saw Cap fight himself in Endgame, I think we could see, Loki fighting Loki if it is Loki, or it could be a Skrull impersonating Loki, or it could be anything because Secret Invasion is the end game event for phases 4, 5, and 6. So everything could be leading towards that ultimate conflict. Who knows? But I think you're going to see multiple Lokis.
Cool. Well, I'm excited about this. It's going to be a great show. It's already off to a strong start. Unfortunately, my wife fell asleep through it, so I'm gonna have to watch it again. Darn. But we watched it kind of late, so. But I'm excited.
There is one thing I was just sitting here thinking about, and in which I'll say this, and we can wrap up on this episode. But we see Agent Mobius talk to the young girl when they're in the 1500s, and we see that she's been given candy. And it made me think, like, there's only really one other villainous person that kind of handed out candy in the Avengers universe, and that was Baron Zemo in the last episode. He handed out candy to those kids to lure them into telling him the information to find out about the funeral that was going on.
Oh, what an interesting connection.
Man, if Baron Zemo is sneaking around the timelines, that's incredible. I love him as a character. The actor is great. So yeah, I'm excited. What is this blue candy about? Where did it come from? And I love that everything has kind of an aura that they can trace. It's super cool. I love to see where they go with that, man.
Yeah. What did we think about, speaking of that scene, we haven't talked about it. What did we think about a few different things? When the TVA looks at different things that are from outside of the world, they like scan the items and they can judge what time period it came from. And they could tell that candy didn't come from that time period in France.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also the child points at this picture of the devil. Like, that kind of felt like foreshadowing to the end of the episode when that whoever the villain is of this series drops the lantern, and it's dark out, so there was a moon in the glass and fire was underneath it. So are we thinking that maybe it was just is this a devil character or like an MCU devil character that we haven't met yet? Or do you think just the horns on the devil kind of play into Loki's
with the helmet on kind of idea? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was interesting in that same scene, they all speak all languages in the sacred timeline. I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's crazy. Like,
that's cool.
That was really cool. But yeah, I don't know. Like, Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, there were rumors in WandaVision that the big baddie in WandaVision, the one that sent the witch in, the one that was kind of pulling the strings, was, and I'm blanking on his name, but it's basically like it's a Satan character in the MCU. Like there was some.
It starts with an M. Because I remember hearing some people talking about it.
Is it Mephisto?
Yeah, that's it. What? So who is Mephisto? Because I kept hearing a lot about it, but I don't know a ton of background there. I don't know a lot of WandaVision's backstory.
So Mephisto is a fictional character appearing in American comic books. He's basically superhuman, physical attributes, intelligent. He's immortal with magical powers, and he kind of symbolizes that devil Satan character, but he is basically the one that in WandaVision comic book or Scarlet Witch comic books, he's the one that wants her two sons.
Okay.
And so there was talk that he he was the ultimate villain. He was the one kind of orchestrating it all. So I wonder if he has some role to play in Loki.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
I don't know.
I still feel like it'll gain a bigger punch if it's somebody we already know. So I feel like they're gonna push for it to be somebody we already know, even if it's like a variant of Cap, and we're gonna see Chris Evans taking on an evil role or something, which could be very interesting, or even a Robert Downey, back as Tony, but an evil Tony. I'm here for any of it. I'm just very excited. The first episode really opened a lot of doors that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I'm here for it too. The amount of mystery involved here is so much fun.
Well, there were some rumors about Endgame when Cap talks about. There was a couple of lines that Cap said specifically, like this is what happens when you mess with the timeline. When Thanos ends up coming, to current year, and some people were theorizing and conspiracy that Tony actually becomes Kang the Conqueror down the road because he continues traveling to gain more power, and that's why Thanos knows him. And so, it would be interesting if because Downey Jr. and Cap both re-signed contracts to reprise characters in the MCU.
Very exciting.
Now, I think that's directly related to Multiverse Madness.
Feels like kind of a stretch to me. Like
it is.
Turning Robert Downey Jr. into I've heard of King the Conqueror. I don't know much about the character, but I don't know. King the Conqueror feels like a much larger villain.
Very true.
And I even heard that King the Conqueror was even connected to the Timekeepers.
But he's a time villain. Like he travels through time and conquers civilizations. So
and some of the artwork that I've seen for some of the artwork that shows King kind of looks like that one of the Timekeepers that
a little bit. So I know Jonathan Majors is supposed to be him in Quantumania. So
is that the guy from Lovecraft Country?
Yes.
Yeah, he's good. I like him.
So branching off of Marvel a little bit, hope you guys enjoyed the recap of Loki episode 1. But what else are we hearing in the geekdom, in the nerddom?
Well, rumors.
Yes.
Rumors and rumors. So we were all texting before today's episode, and a friend of mine texted me about, we've been talking about a lot of rumors for Indiana Jones. They are currently filming. Harrison is on set, and my buddy keeps sending me pictures, my buddy Grayson, and which is weird because my name is also Grayson, but we spell it different. But he sent me a screen grab that he saw on Twitter that somebody posted that was like a Disney rep standing in front of an Indiana Jones sign, and they were trying to block the name of the movie, but they did not quite block it. And it's Indiana Jones and the Empire of Evil. So what do you guys think of the name? I know we talked a moment ago before the show started that they have a big hole to dig out of after the Crystal Skull, but it's more Indiana Jones. It could be great. Yeah.
So there's the screenshot. You can see it right there.
I'm here for it. I think it's a great title. I think Empire of Evil is going to be. I'm really curious to see what they're going to come up with for what type of, I don't know, lore or legend that they're going to go with. It sounds fun.
Empire of Evil just sounds like a B movie title. Like it's something I expect to see, like Sharknado, Empire of Evil. Like I don't know, it just like when I think about like Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, like maybe that's just because I view those as like just phenomenal works of art. And even like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like I didn't hate that name when the movie first came out before I saw it. But Empire of Evil, it just, I feel like anytime you use the word evil in a title, it just, unless you're talking about like Evil Dead or like something, I don't know, it just seems kind of derivative. I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. But
I think Empire already like makes me think of Star Wars every time, like your Empire, Star Wars. So it's a little like, why did they use that word? And I mean, we're going to wait and find out. But based on the traditional Indiana Jones math, you've got Raiders of the Lost Ark is incredible. Temple of Doom definitely takes a dip. It's good, but it dips. But that movie's also a prequel, so you should watch in the other order. But anyway, then Last Crusade is like, for me, that's my favorite one. I think that one, Raiders, obviously, is everybody's favorites. And then we had Crystal Skull. So maybe, hopefully, based on the map, we're going on the uptick again,
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't even called Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark because it wasn't ever like originally designed to be any sort of sequel or franchise or whatever. So, have I ever told you guys my idea for Indiana Jones 5?
No, I'm ready to hear
All
it.
right. Listen. Okay. So
I've heard it.
so it's an awesome. You know it. It's awesome.
I know it's good. I like it.
So George Lucas, Steven Spielberg. If y'all hear this, you can send me a check.
This is copywritten.
It's copywritten. So Indy 5, Indy's old, okay? And he's in search of the Fountain of Youth. Okay, so for the first 2/3 of the movie, you're basically going through Indy's on his normal Indiana Jones quest to find the Fountain of Youth. He finally finds it. He stands before it, grabs a goblet, drinks a little bit. All of a sudden, Harrison Ford melts away, and it's Chris Pratt. And then the last third of the movie is Chris Pratt, and it begins the new Indiana Jones franchise. And that way you pay homage to the old, but you introduce a new character who can carry on the franchise without having to introduce a really poor Shia LaBeouf as Indy's son who just doesn't connect. But that, I'm telling you, Chris Pratt is would be the ultimate Indiana Jones. He would kill it because the personality, but that would be an incredible movie if all of a sudden Harrison Ford melts away and it's Chris Pratt, and now he's young Indiana Jones.
It's so good.
All right,
I love it.
Hot take reaction. If Mutt Jones or Shia shows up in 5, what's your reactions?
I'll walk out.
I won't walk out.
Jeremy's leaving the movie. Okay. All right,
it will drop down to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull level, so the story's really going to have to bring it back up.
Yes.
I think Empire of Evil could really play into maybe like Empire as in maybe something Asian.
Okay.
So maybe like we're talking about like terracotta soldiers or something like that, where we get into that type of archaeology. It's just a different part of the world than what Indy's usually playing
Just
in.
steer clear of aliens. That's all that I care about. Just bring it back to something that exists on this earth. And that's what made Indiana Jones so awesome.
Some would argue that aliens did exist on this earth at one time, Jeremy.
Some would, yes. I do not argue that.
Here's what I would say, and I gotta agree with what you guys are both saying here. The best Indiana Jones movies are rooted in some fabric of reality, where it's like the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, we know the Ark was an actual thing; it is historically documented. The Last Crusade, the Chalice of Christ. We know that existed. It is documented, heavily documented. Those are like the two better films. So I think we can, like you said, Joey, do something that we already know is based in reality, and then just heighten it with that Indiana Jones, heighten it with the fedora and the whip. It's all good.
I will also add to that it's usually religious based.
It is, which I think heightens it a little bit too, especially for our Western culture. It definitely does.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see more Indiana Jones. Don't know, what that means, what it'll actually be, but we'll see.
Here's the thing. If you go back and you watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like for the first 2.5 acts, it felt like an indie movie, except for him like getting shot out of like in a freaking fridge. Like it felt Indiana Jones because Indiana Jones always just squirted that line between like, he can't really do this stuff, but he's Indiana Jones. So you kind of accept that he can. But then it just like the aliens and the UFO and it just fell apart. And so as long as they can steer clear of that and base it in some sort of religious, archetype, some sort of artifact, it doesn't matter. I think it's going to be great if they take that approach with it.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see what happens with it. In other news, in Star Wars news, my favorite genre of nerd stuff. They wrapped filming on Boba Fett, and I think a set photo was leaked that possibly showed Bosk, the bounty hunter Bosk.
Okay.
Alongside Boba Fett and Fennec Shan. Wait, what's her name? The other bounty hunter that Ming-Na Wen plays. Anyway, Bosk is like Bosk was in Empire Strikes Back next to Boba Fett when Darth Vader was sending the bounty hunters out. So we might be seeing his live action re-debut again.
That would be awesome.
I'm really excited to hear about it. Book of Boba Fett comes out in December. So
that's awesome.
This is Nerdy South, y'all. So we're going to talk about everything. I mean, Loki is our primary focus for this first season, but if we hear of other things, other fun rumors or other fun, we're trying not to give away any spoilers, but if we happen to be right on any of our guesses, then spoiler alert. Sorry about it. But yeah, this is Nerdy South, and we hope you all are really enjoying tuning in with us. So watch the show and then find us on YouTube and watch us as we kind of dive into our hot takes on the episode.
Absolutely.
You got to click the like button, share, click the bell. Don't forget to subscribe.
That's right.
Normal stuff. Smash the buttons and click the things.
Tickle that bell icon.
Tickle the bell.
Absolutely. You can find us at Nerdy South.
New videos.
You can find us at nerdysouth.live. And yeah, we had fun. We'll be talking about all things Marvel, all things Loki. Black Widow's coming out soon, so I'm sure we're going to have an episode devoted to that.
Yes.
And yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed it. We loved it, and we'll see you next time.
That's right. See you soon.
See ya.